text came through at 11:47 p.m. I was already in bed, half asleep, when my phone buzzed on the nightstand, except it wasn't my phone. It was my wife Rachel's phone, sitting right next to mine, where she'd left it while she showered. In the dim light, the screens looked identical. I reached over and unlocked it. We'd always known each other's passwords, nothing to hide, planning to bring it to her in the bathroom. That's when I saw the message preview. Michael, I can still taste you. Wednesday can't come soon enough. My brain couldn't process it at first. Michael, who's Michael? Then it hit me. Pastor Michael. Our pastor, the man who'd been counseling our marriage for the past 6 months. I opened the message thread, and my entire world collapsed. My name is Tom, and this is the story of how the man we trusted to save our marriage was actually the one destroying it, and how I discovered that betrayal can come from the most unexpected places, even the pulpit. Rachel and I met in college and got married when we were both 20. We were both raised Christian, attended church regularly, and wanted to build our lives around our faith. When we moved to a new city for my job, finding the right church was our first priority. We found Redemption Community Church about 3 years ago. It was a mid-sized congregation, maybe 300 members, with a charismatic young pastor named Michael Harrison. He was 38, married with 2 kids, and gave powerful sermons that really spoke to us. Within months, we were active members, volunteering, attending Bible studies, becoming part of the community. Pastor Michael married us in a beautiful ceremony at the church. When our daughter Emma was born a year later, he baptized her. He seemed to genuinely care about his congregation, always available for counseling or prayer. We trusted him completely. About 8 months ago, Rachel and I hit a rough patch. I'd gotten a promotion that required longer hours and some travel. Rachel had quit her job to stay home with Emma, and she was feeling isolated and overwhelmed. We started arguing about everything: money, parenting, household responsibilities, how much time I was spending at work. The arguments got worse. Some nights, we'd barely speak to each other. The intimacy in our marriage disappeared. We slept on opposite sides of the bed, lived separate lives in the same house, and communicated mostly through terse text messages about logistics. We need help, Rachel said one night after a particularly bad fight. I don't want our marriage to fall apart, but I don't know how to fix this. I agreed. We decided to seek counseling, and our first thought was to talk to Pastor Michael. He'd done premarital counseling with us before the wedding, and we trusted him. Plus, getting counseling from our pastor felt more comfortable than going to a stranger. Of course I'll help you, Pastor Michael said when we approached him after service. Marriage is sacred, and I'm here to support you both through this challenge. Let's set up weekly sessions. We started meeting with Pastor Michael every Tuesday evening in his church office. The sessions were usually about an hour long. He'd have us sit on the couch in his office while he sat in his chair, Bible open on his lap, taking notes as we talked. At first, the sessions seemed helpful. Pastor Michael would listen to our complaints about each other, then gently guide us toward seeing the other person's perspective. He'd assign us homework, Bible verses to read together, date nights to plan, communication exercises to practice. Marriage is a covenant before God, he'd remind us. It takes work, but with faith and commitment, you can overcome anything. Rachel seemed to respond really well to the counseling. She'd come out of sessions looking lighter, more hopeful. At home, she'd be more affectionate, more willing to talk through our issues. I was hopeful that Pastor Michael was helping us turn a corner. After about a month, Pastor Michael suggested something new. I think it would be beneficial for me to have some individual sessions with each of you, he said. Sometimes people can't fully open up with their spouse presence. This will help me understand each of your perspectives better. It made sense to me. If Rachel had complaints about me she didn't feel comfortable saying to my face, having a private session with the pastor could help. So we agreed the individual sessions were on Wednesday afternoons. Pastor Michael would meet with Rachel at 2 p.m., then with me at 4 p.m. I worked nearby, so I'd leave the office early, drop Emma at my mom's house, and head to the church. Looking back, there were warning signs I should have caught. But when you trust someone completely, especially someone in a position of spiritual authority, you don't look for signs of deception. Red flag 1. The individual sessions with Rachel started lasting longer than scheduled. They were supposed to be an hour, but sometimes I'd arrive at 4 p.m. for my session, and Rachel would still be in there with Pastor Michael. Once, they didn't come out until 4:30. Sorry, Pastor Michael said with an apologetic smile. Rachel was having a breakthrough, and I didn't want to cut it short. Rachel looked flushed, but happy. It was really intense, she said. Pastor Michael is really helping me work through some things. Red flag 2, Rachel started dressing up for her Wednesday sessions. She'd wear makeup, style her hair, put on her nice clothes, more effort than she put in for our Tuesday evening sessions together. When I asked about it, she said she was just trying to take better care of herself. Pastor Michael says, I need to value myself more, she explained. Stop letting myself go just because I'm a mom now. Red flag 3. Rachel's mood became dependent on these Wednesday sessions. If she had a session with Pastor Michael, she'd be happy and energetic for days afterward. If a session got canceled for some reason, she'd be irritable and withdrawn. Red flag 4. Pastor Michael started texting Rachel more frequently. She'd get messages from him throughout the week, Bible verses, encouragement, check-ins about how she was doing. At first, I thought it was nice that our pastor was so attentive. Then I noticed that Rachel would smile when she got these texts, would sometimes step into another room to respond. What does he say? I asked once. Just checking on me, she said quickly, putting her phone away, seeing how I'm doing with the homework he assigned. Red flag 5. Our Tuesday sessions as a couple started feeling less productive. Pastor Michael would seem distracted, would sometimes reference things Rachel had told him in their private sessions without explaining the context to me. I'd feel like I was missing parts of the conversation. Red flag 6. Rachel became defensive of Pastor Michael. If I ever questioned his advice or suggested a different approach to something, she'd get upset. He's a trained counselor, she'd say. He's helped thousands of couples. We need to trust his guidance. Red flag 7. Our sex life actually got worse, not better. Despite Pastor Michael's homework assignments about physical intimacy, Rachel seemed less interested in being intimate with me. She'd always have an excuse: too tired, stressed about Emma, not feeling well. But she didn't seem tired or stressed in general. She seemed energized, actually, just not interested in me. The night I found the texts, Rachel and I had just finished putting Emma to bed. Rachel said she was going to take a quick shower before bed. She left her phone on the nightstand, something she rarely did anymore. When the text came through and I picked up what I thought was my phone, I wasn't snooping. But once I saw that message from Michael, I couldn't stop myself from looking. The message thread was extensive. Hundreds of messages going back months, and they weren't pastoral counseling messages. They were the messages of two people having an affair. And you can't stop thinking about Wednesday. You look so beautiful today. I love you. I scrolled back further, my hands shaking. The messages got more explicit. Details about what they've done during their counseling sessions, plans for when they could meet again, discussions about how to hide their affair from me and from Pastor Michael's wife. There were intimate photos that Rachel had sent him. Photos taken in our house, in our bedroom, while I was at work and Emma was napping. I felt physically ill. I ran to the bathroom and threw up, my hands bracing against the sink. Rachel was in the shower, humming softly, completely unaware that I'd just discovered her secret. I waited until Rachel came out of the bathroom, wrapped in a towel, hair wet. She smiled at me, a genuine, happy smile that now felt like another lie. Feel better after that shower? She started to say, then saw my face. What's wrong? I held up a phone, showing the message thread with Pastor Michael. The color drained from her face. Tom, I cut her off. Don't lie to me anymore. I've read everything, the messages, the photos, all of it. She sank onto the bed, still in her towel, looking like she might faint. I'm so sorry. I never meant for this to happen. How long? I demanded. How long has this been going on? About 4 months, she whispered. Since the individual counseling sessions started 4 months. A third of our marriage counseling had actually been Rachel having an affair with our pastor while I paid him to help save our marriage. Did you sleep with him? I asked, even though I already knew the answer from the messages. She nodded, tears streaming down her face, in his office, on Wednesdays during our sessions. Tom, I'm so sorry. I don't know how it happened. He was just so understanding, so supportive, and I felt so alone in our marriage. And he took advantage of that. I said, he was supposed to be helping us, and instead he seduced you. It wasn't like that, she said, but her voice was uncertain. What was it like then, Rachel? Explain to me how your pastor started an affair with you while counseling our marriage was somehow okay. She couldn't answer. She just cried. The next morning, I left Emma with my mom and drove straight to the church. It was Thursday, around 9 a.m. I knew Pastor Michael would be in his office preparing for the men's Bible study he led later that day. He looked surprised when I walked in. Tom, I wasn't expecting you. Is everything? Then he saw my face and stopped talking. I know about you and Rachel, I said, closing the door behind me. He didn't try to deny it. He just sank into his chair, his face going pale. Tom, I'm so sorry. You never meant what? I interrupted. You never meant to sleep with a woman who came to you for marriage counseling? You never meant to betray your position as a pastor? You never meant to destroy my family. It just happened, he said weakly. Rachel and I connected, and feelings developed. I was shouting now. You were counseling us. You were supposed to be helping our marriage, not destroying it from the inside. Did you even care about saving our marriage? Or were you pursuing my wife the whole time? I did care, he insisted. I tried to fight it, but Rachel was so unhappy, and she needed someone. She needed her pastor to do his job. I said, not to take advantage of her vulnerability. I love her, he said, and that somehow made it worse. You're married, I said. You have kids. You're a pastor. For God's sake. What about your wife, your family, your congregation? He put his head in his hands. I know I've sinned. I've prayed about it every day. I've asked God for forgiveness. What about asking me for forgiveness? I demanded. Or your wife, or the hundreds of people who trust you. He didn't have an answer for that. I didn't keep that affair quiet. I couldn't. Pastor Michael wasn't just any man having an affair. He was a spiritual leader who'd betrayed his position and his congregation. People needed to know. I went to the church elders that same day and told them everything. I showed them the text messages, explained the situation, and demanded accountability. The elders were shocked and horrified. They immediately suspended Pastor Michael and launched an investigation. Within days, the whole church knew. Pastor Michael was asked to step down permanently. The congregation was devastated. Pastor Michael had been their spiritual leader, someone they'd trusted with their marriages, their families, their faith. Learning that he'd had an affair with a parishioner while counseling her marriage shook everyone's faith. Pastor Michael's wife, Sarah, found out along with everyone else. I felt terrible for her. She'd been betrayed just like I had. And publicly, she filed for divorce almost immediately and left the church with their 2 kids. Some people in the congregation blamed Rachel, calling her a temptress who'd seduced their pastor. Others blamed Pastor Michael for abusing his position. Most people were just hurt and confused, not sure what to believe or who to trust. Rachel and I, obviously left the church too. We couldn't stay there after everything that had happened. The church we'd built our lives around, the community we'd trusted, all of it was tainted now. Rachel moved out 2 days after I found the texts. She went to stay with her parents while we figured out what came next. She wanted to try to save the marriage, wanted to go to counseling with a different counselor this time, but I couldn't do it. The betrayal was too deep. She hadn't just cheated on me, she'd done it with our pastor during marriage counseling, while I was literally paying for her to have private time with him. The humiliation was unbearable. He manipulated me, Rashid argued. He was in a position of authority, and he took advantage of that. I was vulnerable, and he used that vulnerability to start an affair. She wasn't entirely wrong. Pastor Michael absolutely had abused his position and manipulated her. But Rachel had also made choices. She'd sent him intimate photos. She'd lied to me for months. She'd continued the affair even after it started, knowing it was wrong. You could have stopped it, I said. At any point, you could have told me, could have stopped going to the sessions, could have ended it, but you didn't. I know, she said, crying. I know I made terrible choices, but I still love you, Tom. I want to fix this. I don't think it can be fixed, I told her. The divorce was painful, but relatively quick. Rachel didn't fight me on anything, custody, assets, nothing. I think she was too ashamed to put up a fight. We agreed on joint custody of Emma, with me having primary custody. Rachel could see Emma on weekends and holidays. It wasn't ideal, but it was better than the alternative. The hardest part was explaining to Emma why Mommy and Daddy weren't living together anymore. She was only 3, too young to understand the full story, but old enough to know something was wrong. Mommy and Daddy are having some grown-up problems, I told her, but we both love you very much, and that will never change. She cried and asked if it was her fault. That broke my heart. I assured her that none of this was her fault, that sometimes grown-ups make mistakes and have to live separately, but that she'd always have both of us. One of the hardest parts of the aftermath was navigating my relationship with faith and church. What Pastor Michael had done made me question everything. If a pastor could betray his congregation so completely, who could I trust? How could I ever sit in a church again without wondering if the person at the pulpit was hiding something? I stopped going to church for about 6 months. I needed time to process everything, to figure out what I believed and whether I could still trust religious institutions. Eventually, I started attending a small church on the other side of town. It was different from Redemption Community, quieter, more traditional, with an older pastor who'd been there for 20 years. I sat in the back row for weeks, just observing, trying to feel out whether this was a safe place. Slowly, I started to heal my relationship with faith. I realized that Pastor Michael's betrayal didn't reflect on God or on Christianity. It reflected on him as a flawed human being who'd failed to live up to his calling. There are bad pastors just like there are bad doctors or bad teachers or bad people in any profession. But I'm more cautious now. I don't blindly trust spiritual leaders the way I used to. I ask questions, I maintain healthy boundaries, and I remember that pastors are human beings capable of sin just like anyone else. Through mutual friends and co-parenting communications, I've learned bits and pieces about Rachel's life after our divorce. The affair with Pastor Michael ended almost immediately after it became public. He wanted nothing to do with her once the scandal broke. Apparently his love wasn't as strong as he claimed. Rachel went to therapy and apparently did a lot of work on herself. She eventually found a new church and became active there, though I'm sure that was difficult given what had happened. She dated a few people, but nothing serious. I think the experience had damaged her ability to trust herself and others. She'd made terrible choices, and living with those consequences wasn't easy. When we'd see each other during Emma's pickups and drop-offs, she'd sometimes try to apologize again or explain herself. I'd listen politely, but wouldn't engage deeply. I didn't hate her, but I didn't want to revisit the pain either. "I hope you can forgive me someday," she said once. "I'm working on it." I told her honestly, but forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. What you did can't be undone. She nodded, tears in her eyes. "I know, I just want you to know that I'm sorry. Every single day. I'm sorry. It's been 2 years now since I found those texts. I'm in a better place than I was, though I'm not fully healed. The betrayal left scars that I'm still learning to live with. I'm dating someone new, a woman named Jennifer, who I met through work. She's kind, honest, and patient with my trust issues. When I told her my story, she didn't run away or judge me. She just listened and understood. That must have been incredibly painful, she said. But it doesn't define you. You're allowed to heal and move forward. Emma is doing well. She's 5 now and has adjusted to the new normal of having 2 houses. She loves Jennifer and calls her daddy's friend. We're taking things slowly, making sure Emma feels secure and loved through all the changes. I'm still going to that small church on the other side of town. I've even joined a men's group there, which has been helpful. Being able to talk to other men about faith and life and struggles has been healing in its own way. But I'm different now. I'll never be as trusting as I was before. I'll never assume that someone in a position of authority is automatically trustworthy. And I'll never ignore red flags the way I did with Rachel and Pastor Michael. This experience taught me several hard lessons. First, spiritual leaders are human beings capable of the same sins as anyone else. The collar or the title doesn't make someone immune to temptation or poor choices. Second, when someone is in a position of power, especially spiritual or emotional power, the potential for abuse is enormous. Pastor Michael had authority in our lives, and he used that authority to manipulate my wife. Third, trust should be earned and maintained through consistent behavior, not given automatically based on someone's role or title. And finally, betrayal can come from anywhere. Sometimes the people who seem most trustworthy, the ones in positions of authority, the ones we turn to for help, are the ones who hurt us most. So here's my question for all of you. Have you ever been betrayed by someone in a position of authority or trust, a religious leader, a therapist, a teacher, a mentor? And how do you rebuild trust in institutions after something like that happens? Let me know in the comments. Your stories might help someone else who's going through something similar.